When physics becomes violence. This photograph captures Bruce Lee's legendary sidekick at the precise moment of impact, and the result is devastating. His opponent, caught mid-recoil, arches backward with his head snapped to the side, body contorted by the force of Lee's strike. The grainy quality and atmospheric lighting suggest this is from actual film footage, possibly Enter the Dragon or another Golden Harvest production. Lee's body positioning is textbook perfection, supporting leg straight and stable, kicking leg fully extended, hips rotated to maximize power transfer, upper body leaning back for balance and to keep the kick's trajectory true. His arms are positioned precisely, rear arm pulled back for counterbalance, lead arm guarding his center line. This isn't choreographed theater where the kick stops inches from the target. This is contact, real or carefully simulated to look brutally authentic. The opponent's distorted posture tells the story. Lee's kicks didn't just touch, they moved people. The biomechanics of devastating power. Bruce Lee's sidekick, visible in this freeze-frame moment, was his signature technique and perhaps the most powerful strike in his arsenal. Biomechanically, the sidekick generates force through a kinetic chain that begins at the ground and travels through the entire body. Lee's supporting foot, flat and rooted to the floor, creates a stable base. His supporting leg is locked straight, turning his entire lower body into a rigid lever. The kicking leg extends from the hip through a rotational movement that engages gluteal muscles, hip flexors, quadriceps, and finally the stabilizing muscles of the ankle and foot. But the real power comes from hip rotation. Lee's hips are perpendicular to his opponent at the moment of impact, maximizing the rotational force component. His upper body leans away from the kick, creating a longer lever arm and preventing the kick's force from pushing him backward instead of forward into the target. Every element works in concert to deliver what Lee claimed was over 1,000 pounds of force, enough to send a 200-pound man flying backward. The opponent's truth, real impact or perfect acting. Look at the opponent's body in this photograph, head twisted violently to the side, torso bent backward at an unnatural angle, arms flailing for balance that won't come. This raises a fascinating question. Is this real impact or masterful stunt work? In Bruce Lee's films, the line between the two was often blurred. Lee was notorious for demanding real contact in fight scenes, believing that pulled punches and fake strikes looked unconvincing on camera. His co-stars frequently complained about bruises, and some refused to work with him again after experiencing his controlled strikes. However, Lee was also technically precise enough to deliver strikes that looked devastating while causing minimal actual injury, hitting with full speed but stopping penetration at the last instant, or striking areas of the body that could absorb impact safely. The opponent's reaction in this photograph could be either genuine response to a powerful impact, or the skilled acting of a stunt performer who knows exactly how to make Lee's technique look lethal. Either way, the image achieves its purpose. Viewers believe in the power of that kick. The signature weapon. Why Lee favored legs. Bruce Lee's philosophy on fighting emphasized that legs were superior weapons to fists for multiple reasons, all visible in this photograph. First, range. Lee's extended leg reaches his opponent while keeping his own head and vital organs far from counterattack. Second, power. Legs contain the body's largest muscle groups and can generate far more force than arms. Third, surprise. Most traditional martial arts and Western boxing emphasized hand techniques, making Lee's leg-heavy approach unexpected and difficult to counter. In his Jeet Kune Do system, Lee taught that the sidekick should be deployed like a boxer's jab, frequently, to control distance and set up combinations, not saved as a finishing move. The sidekick was particularly effective because it presents minimal target area to opponents while delivering maximum force along the body's strongest structural line. Lee trained this kick obsessively, performing hundreds of repetitions daily against heavy bags, focus pads, and human targets, refining the technique until it became reflexive. The atmospheric lighting, creating cinematic mythology. The grainy atmospheric quality of this photograph, with its diffused background lights and high-contrast shadows, represents the visual language that defined 1970s martial arts cinema. These weren't technical limitations but aesthetic choices that created mood and mystery. The slight motion blur on the opponent suggests either actual high-speed movement or intentional photographic technique to enhance the sense of violent impact. The background fades to indistinct gray, focusing all attention on the two figures and their violent interaction. This visual style became inseparable from how audiences experienced martial arts, not as clean, well-lit sport, but as shadowy, intense combat where every strike carried serious consequence. Modern action cinema, with its crystalline 4K clarity and CGI enhancement, has actually moved away from this aesthetic, but many filmmakers are rediscovering that the grainy, high-contrast look of 1970s martial arts films created a visceral impact that excessive clarity sometimes diminishes. The training behind the technique, the perfect form captured in this photograph, represents thousands of hours of dedicated training. Bruce Lee's approach to developing his sidekick combined traditional martial arts practice with innovative strength and conditioning methods. He performed weighted leg raises to build the hip flexors and lower abdominal muscles that initiate the kick. He practiced holding his leg extended at full height for extended periods to build the endurance necessary for multiple kicks in rapid succession. He kicked heavy bags suspended at various heights to develop power while maintaining accuracy. He studied the mechanics of his kick using mirrors and later film analysis, watching footage of himself frame by frame to identify any inefficiency or weakness in his technique. He experimented with different hip angles, finding the optimal rotation that maximized power while maintaining balance. He tested the kick against actual opponents in sparring, learning how real people moved and reacted, adjusting his technique based on practical results rather than theoretical ideals. The opponent as essential partner. While Bruce Lee dominates this photograph, the opponent's role is crucial to understanding what makes the image powerful. In martial arts cinema, stunt performers who take the hits are often as skilled as the stars who deliver them. A great stunt performer knows how to make every strike look devastating, how to time their reaction perfectly, how to fall safely while appearing to be destroyed. The opponent in this photograph, identity unknown but skill evident, is executing what's called a sell, making Lee's technique look as powerful as possible through their physical reaction. The twisted torso, the snapped back head, the off-balance stumble, these are all elements of professional stunt work that require training, timing, and courage. In the dangerous environment of 1970s Hong Kong film sets, before modern safety equipment and regulations, stunt performers risked serious injury in every scene. Their willingness to make stars look good, often without credit or recognition, was essential to creating the martial arts cinema mythology that made Bruce Lee famous. The philosophy in motion, Jeet Kune Do principles. This photograph embodies several core Jeet Kune Do principles that distinguish Lee's martial arts philosophy. First, directness. The sidekick travels in a straight line from Lee's hip to the opponent's body, no wasted movement or telegraphing. Second, efficiency. Lee's body positioning uses minimal energy to generate maximum impact. Every muscle either contributes to the kick or stabilizes the body. Nothing is wasted on unnecessary motion. Third, simplicity. This isn't a flashy spinning kick or jumping technique. It's a fundamental strike executed with absolute mastery. Lee believed that martial arts had been corrupted by an obsession with complex, impressive-looking techniques that had limited practical application. He advocated stripping away ornamentation to focus on simple techniques executed with perfect timing and maximum power. The sidekick captured here represents this philosophy. It looks almost mundane in its straightforward execution, yet the opponent's reaction reveals its devastating effectiveness. The split second before and after, this photograph captures a single instant, but understanding what came before and what follows after reveals the true sophistication of Lee's fighting technique. Before this moment, Lee would have read his opponent's positioning, identified the opening, committed to the attack, and executed the kick's chamber phase, knee drawn up close to his own chest, foot cocked, body coiled. After this moment, Lee's foot will retract back along the same path it extended, returning to a stable fighting stance before the opponent can recover, and Lee will already be calculating his next move, another kick, a punch combination, or defensive positioning based on how the opponent responds to the impact. This pre-planning and post-strike recovery is what separated Lee from less skilled fighters who committed fully to single techniques without thinking through the entire combat sequence. The beautiful sidekick captured here is just one note in a larger combat symphony that Lee orchestrated through superior speed, timing, and tactical thinking, the grainy authenticity, film technology, and martial arts. The photographic quality of this image, grainy, slightly blurred, with that distinctive 1970s film stock appearance, actually enhances rather than diminishes its impact. Modern audiences might assume that better technology would create better martial arts imagery, but there's something about the analog film aesthetic that makes combat feel more real, more dangerous, more consequential. The grain adds texture that suggests gritty reality rather than polished entertainment. The slight imperfection in focus and exposure makes the action feel captured rather than staged. This wasn't Instagram-filtered perfection, but documentary-style evidence of real martial arts technique being executed at real speed with real consequences. When Golden Harvest and other Hong Kong studios eventually adopted more modern film technology in later years, some critics argued that martial arts films actually lost something, the raw, immediate quality that made earlier films like Enter the Dragon feel so visceral and authentic. The cultural impact of a single kick, this photograph, or others like it from Bruce Lee's films, helped revolutionize how audiences worldwide understood martial arts. Before Lee, Western audiences primarily knew karate through demonstrations and the occasional Hollywood film featuring white actors in Asian roles. Lee's films, with moments like this devastating sidekick, showed martial arts as something powerful, effective, and modern, not mystical, oriental exoticism, but practical combat technique that anyone could theoretically learn and apply. The photograph's composition, Lee in mid-strike, opponent clearly affected by the impact, communicated martial arts effectiveness across language barriers. You didn't need to understand Cantonese or read subtitles to grasp that Lee's kick was devastatingly effective. This visual communication helped make martial arts a global phenomenon, inspiring millions to take up training and spawning an entire genre of martial arts cinema that continues today. The legacy, teaching through cinema. Bruce Lee viewed his films not just as entertainment, but as educational tools, spreading martial arts philosophy to global audiences who would never visit a dojo. This photograph, frozen from film footage, represents that educational mission. Martial arts students worldwide studied Lee's films, frame by frame, analyzing his techniques, trying to understand and replicate what made him so effective. The sidekick captured here became a technique that millions of practitioners attempted to master, using Lee's filmed performances as their guide. This was revolutionary. Martial arts had traditionally been secretive, with masters closely guarding their techniques, teaching only selected students. Lee democratized martial arts knowledge, believing that truth should be freely shared. His films became the most widely distributed martial arts instructional material in history, teaching basic principles to absolute beginners while offering advanced practitioners insights into timing, positioning, and power generation that they could study endlessly. Final reflection, frozen perfection. This photograph captures the essence of Bruce Lee's martial arts genius in a single frozen moment. Every element is perfectly aligned. Supporting leg creating stable foundation, hips rotated for maximum power, kicking leg extended at optimal angle, upper body balanced, arms positioned correctly. The opponent's violent reaction provides visual proof of the technique's effectiveness. The atmospheric cinematography creates mood that elevates technique to art. This isn't just documentation of a fight scene, it's evidence of mastery, philosophy made physical, years of training crystallized into a fraction of a second. Modern martial artists can study this image and see principles that remain relevant decades later: the importance of body mechanics, the value of simplicity over complexity, the power of perfecting fundamentals rather than chasing flashy techniques. Bruce Lee has been gone for over 50 years, but photographs like this one keep his teachings alive, inspiring new generations to pursue excellence, to question conventional wisdom, and to understand that true martial arts mastery is about much more than fighting. It's about perfecting yourself as a human being, one technique, one principle, one moment at a time.